John, if you sit here, people will see you. Let's see.
Is the one?
Yes, yes. You want to read the one that is marked? Okay. Yes, that one. Yes, thank you.
Okay. The initial message on this Friday evening at 7 o'clock in the Spiritual Society of Virginia is entitled Fraternal Love. It is number 141 from the Spirit Emmanuel through the mediumship of Francisco Candido Xavier. The New Testament quote is from Paul, a letter to the Hebrews, chapter 13, verse 1. Let fraternal love remain. Family affections, blood ties, and natural affinities can be very holy manifestations of the soul when individuals raise them to the altar of the higher sentiments. However, the spirit should not fall under the weight of its personal inclinations. Equilibrium is the ideal position. By being overly protective, countless parents cause their children harm. Due to excessive worry, many married couples descend to the caverns of despair, confronted by the insatiable monsters of jealousy that destroys their happiness. Because of carelessness, beautiful friendships end in the abyss of darkness. The above evangelical appeal, therefore, is of great importance. Pure fraternity is the most sublime of the relationships between souls. People who believe they are children of God and sincere brothers and sisters of humankind are not victims of the ghosts of spite, envy, ambition, or mistrust. Those who love one another fraternally are elated with the joy of others, and they are pleased with the good fortune that visits their neighbor. The tumultuous affections that are common on the earth pass volcanically and uselessly. In the web of reincarnation, affections change constantly. Sublime and pure fraternal love, representing the supreme objective of people's understanding, is the imperishable light that will survive on the eternal path. Am I supposed to say something?
Thank you. Luciana can do the prayer, right?
I think it speaks for itself.
Thank you. You're right. So let us then close our eyes and bring ourselves to this spiritual center. For this study session. Dear Mother, Father God, loving mentors, Master Jesus, thank you so much for this opportunity that is being presented to us today to learn more about our spirituality and start this study session of this book that will really help us to progress in this reincarnation. We ask you, Lord, and mentors, to help us to open our eyes, ears, and our heart so that we can feel and understand these teachings so that we can apply in our daily lives and transform ourselves. Thank you for being guiding us throughout this life and be helping us in this center, which we come non-stop to nourish our souls. As we starve for knowledge, teachings, we are very happy today to start this new session. And we ask for your guidance, your protection, so that we can take the best of this study session with us to our lives. So, with your permission, we would like to open the study session of today, and so be it. Yeah. Me too. I like it much more. It's much more. Yeah, and it's easier to think. Yeah. You okay there, Valeria? Today is like a very glorious day for many reasons. But one we can say is this book, because I remember 12 years ago when somebody brought this book to the, when somebody said, "Oh, Vanessa, what about this book? Is it translated into English?" I said, "No," as usual. And lately, Carol Correa has a degree in translation. She decided to do it, and we said, "Go for it." So she did it, finished it. Thanks to her, we have this book now in English, because this book is fascinating. Emmanuel is the author, and Chico Xavier again is the medium of this phenomenal compilation of 26 chapters. It's a very thin book, but the chapters, though page and a half long, they are extremely deep. Of course, we don't intend on going through every sentence, because hopefully, when it gets to be published, if not by the publisher soon, the Spiritus Magazine will do the favor, we will be able to go over and over again. But the format is a little different, because as we go through this, there is a moment in which we open. We are not going to show anybody in the video, because people are open to talk and to ask questions. They may be personal, and that's okay. Personal, same thing, private, personal, but not too private. People won't see it, but they will hear. We won't say the name, but they will know. But sometimes our problems is everybody's problems.
We're not unique.
Not unique. When we talk about the book Life and Sex, it's interesting to note the title. He could have reversed the order, sex and life, and that would have meant something else. It's not by chance that Emmanuel decided to do life and sex, because sex is not bigger than life. It's part of life. So these spirits are very wise. They are ahead of us. If you talk to authors nowadays, the ones that are really skillful, because there are many people who publish books, it doesn't mean they really know much, because nowadays any book is a book. But we're talking about real authors that are really skillful.
especially Genesis, every word has a purpose, every order has a meaning, and we start learning from the book at the title. Life is bigger than sex. If we reverse the order, we are in need of help. When sex becomes bigger than life, that's Sex in the City. Thank you. That's when sex becomes bigger than life, and it doesn't go far. Now, if you go through, besides Emmanuel and Relou's books, he has many books that talks about this, and mainly one that we would recommend. It's already in English, published. You can buy it at Amazon. Sex and Destiny. The book Sex and Destiny is wonderful, and it's like you can't put it down, because when you start reading it, it's like, oh my gosh, I want to see what's going to happen next. It's story. It's real story, though we don't know who the people are. It's a real story. It happened to two families in Brazil, and it shows the behind the scenes, meaning the spiritual realm, before the reincarnation, after the reincarnation, the purpose of each reincarnation. So it's fascinating to see. Sex and Destiny. Now, see, Sex and Destiny. The purpose. Because when sex becomes bigger than anything, there is consequences. And in a minute, we're going to talk about that. Now, when we here will talk about this book was written in 1970. Chico Xavier was 60 years old. So interesting. He was mature as a person. Well, the book, he's not the author of the book, but it's interesting that Emmanuel brought this book right before, 1 year before Chico Xavier was allowed to go nationally visible in Brazil, which happened in 1971. Was right the year before this happened. So the context of the time, like what happened in 1970, what was happening to the world, right? People were proclaiming sexual freedom, right? They were proclaiming sexual freedom. We can do all and anything and everything at the same time. And this book came to life. So it's good to know the context and to know that Chico was not a teenager when he psychographed this book. It wouldn't make a difference apparently, but it would. He's not the author, but he's the medium. So the good spirits, they bring this message when Chico Xavier himself is the intermediary is very mature. Mature enough to make it very reliable and say, this is a booklet that is almost like a textbook for us in so many ways. What is the context? 26 chapters. We don't have the titles of all the 26 chapters, but this is pretty much what we're going to see. Chapters that, of course, talk about sex, family, dating, talk about our homes, the commitment in relationships, marriage, divorce, happy unions, children, maladjustments, abortion, aversion in the family, like estrangement, homosexuality, adultery and prostitution, parents and children, and more. So it's a book that encompasses everything that happens in our lives on earth. To begin it, preface, 1970. He wrote it in June 1970. And Emmanuel says a few things that are remarkable. Everything is remarkable, but he says very humbly, this is not to add anything, but just to give us a summary, guidelines. And he says, in terms of sex, we do not prohibit, but we educate. The book is not here to prohibit anything, but to educate. The book is not here to impose that we don't do sex, abstinence, but to dignify the use, respecting others and ourselves. So, who invented sex? God. So I tell people in my practice that don't feel guilty for wanting to do it because you didn't create it. God did. So talk to God and say, what do I do now? What do I do with it? Because God created it. For what for? So we need to use it in a dignified manner. Food for thought, what is it?
Use it, but don't overdo it.
Hmm?
Use it, but don't overdo it. That's what
Don't
you do.
overdo it. But even if you do it once and you do it with the wrong person, then
Well.
it's still right.
Well, that's not.
It's not about quantity, it's about quality too. But who are we to say anything? That's what Emmanuel is going to say. At the end of the book, from beginning to end, he said, none of us on earth have any way to say, check. Because even if in this reincarnation we check the box, who knows? If in another lifetime, in other conditions, we would behave the same way. I see older generations sometimes looking at the younger generations, like shocked at what's happening. But sometimes we reflect. If we were reincarnated now, how would we do? I saw the news yesterday. The celebrity, Demi Lovato, she recently, months ago, said, I'm not she, I'm they. Call me they. And them, and they are. Well, now if you say no, people are going to crucify you. Say, okay, they. Okay, hello, you all. One person, you all. And now, a month later, she says, no, I'm including she and her. So why do you create this mess for young minds that don't know what they are doing? Keep it to yourself with your therapist, with God, and then you figure out if you are he or she or they, because you're celebrity. You're influencing people, and there are people who don't know what they're doing. Like, oh, maybe I should do the same. Imagine if Jesus came to us and said, I'm Dana. We would probably say we should do too. I don't know why, but if he did it, we should do too. Well, we have responsibility. That's exactly what Emmanuel is going to bring to us. We're not going to supporting discipline, but control, management. And he says this book is here to raise our responsibility instead of free impulse. Instead of like, oh yeah, I want hot chocolate now. But at 10 p.m., if you drink hot chocolate, it's not going to help you sleep. So, right? Personal responsibility. When Emmanuel discloses the very preface, he says that the goal regarding sex is personal sublimation. Now, it's almost like Freud. Freud, when he talked about the use of our sexual forces, he said it would be ideal for us to sublimate it. And people are like, what is sublimation? So here's a good definition of sublimation. Is to change the form, but not the essence. Psychologically, it means changing the means of expression from something base and inappropriate to something more positive and acceptable. So we're not going to change sex itself, but we're going to change the way it's expressed. How many times psychoanalysis discovered and spiritism confirms that you can use the very creative forces of sex to create, to be creative, to draw, to write, to paint, to dance, to sing, to cook, draw, to write, to many things. So that's what sublimation is. Not necessarily we're not going to use it, but we're going to transform it to something that is bigger. Society.
You talk about the driving force behind sex, which is enormous. And
Enormous.
it made me think of these people that do these extreme sports.
Yes.
I was always wondering why they want to jump out of airplanes, do this hang gliding. Got to be that sexual drive.
Yeah, the impulse.
Yeah, because I saw on the news today a gentleman does some type of hang gliding, parachute, and got all messed up. And he was 1 second from hitting the ground. He sit down and he got a hold of his emergency chute. The emergency chute didn't open up. So he had to rip it up himself. And this gentleman had already had one accident before and he broke his back.
But what is it? Suicidal spirits. Because extreme sports is about minds that easily gravitate to suicide. And if they die that way, they are considered suicidal. There's no like, oh, I didn't want to. No, but you knew that you would potentially. So one thing is a mission. Let's talk about something. Let's say you are a marine aviator, like in Top Gun Maverick, and then you have a mission that will really protect nations, and then you have to risk your life for the whole. That's one thing. Another is risking your lives for nothing, just to jump from here to there. It's suicide. It's suicide.
Isn't the whole coast it's so crazy?
Never see. Yeah.
Amusement park.
There are risks, but we need to ponder. For example, there is now at every gym there is rock climbing, but they make it kind of safe because there is a harness, there's somebody there. Still, there is a risk, but it's not like extreme sports that you're climbing mountains without anything, going to the Everest mountain just to go there and helping who? Who are you helping when you're doing this? 0 people, right? But in regards to sexual addictions, it's also considered suicide. In the book Memoirs of a Suicide, there is a chapter that Mother Mary helps spirits who died misusing their sexual forces, and it's considered also a form of indirect suicide. It's suicide. We're going to talk more about this. Then when we march into chapter 1, the whole chapter 1 is to define sex. What is it? So Emmanuel, wisely going hand in hand with Kardec, and it's good to know this because when we read the Spiritist books, we need to compare if the information we're reading here is in synchronicity with Kardec's. Because there are many people who are going to write many things and it's not in alignment. So, but Emmanuel begins it by quoting question and answer 201 of the Spirit's book. When Kardec, imagine, 1857, he was really a trailblazer in so many ways. He asked, can a spirit who has animated the body of a man animate the body of a woman in a new existence, and vice versa? For us nowadays, we would say that's totally, yes, normal. But imagine back then. If nowadays many people would say, ew, I don't want to be in the body of a man. I don't want to be in the body of a woman. The spirit said, yes, the same spirits animate men and women. Dr. Ian Stevenson at the University of Virginia, he studied many cases of memories of previous lives, scientifically proving the memories with the happenings they researched. And one of the cases was of this girl from India. Her name Rani Saxena. And she says, as a girl, she was 9. She says, I know why I had to be born in the body of a woman. Because in a previous life I was a lawyer, but I was very disrespectful to women. He would have many women disregarding their feelings. And she said, I know in this life I have to be in the body of a woman, to be a woman. And this is interesting. She understood why. Unlike many people nowadays who say, but I don't want to be a woman. Yes, you're free. If you want to change, go ahead, change. Be transgender, be whatever you like. We respect it. But it's important to ask. It's one of the first things when we reincarnate is to acknowledge the body we were given. Why were I given the body of a boy or of a girl? We need to teach our children and ask constantly, do you appreciate it? But not appreciate versus the other, like say, yeah, because men are better than women or women are better than men. No. But for me, I feel it's a good thing. If we reject this primary plan, we start our reincarnation going to the opposite direction.
They're always wondering what the people who do these operations and what they do themselves.
I mean, we respect, we support. We're not talking about sexual orientation yet, but we will in this book. But it doesn't prohibit, it's not prejudiced. But we need to think, did God make a mistake when we were born? Some women, they believe that if they have eaten certain types of food, they could have changed the sex of the gender of their babies. Oh, if I had eaten this. And that's the ignorance. Like the other day when I was at a gathering, and this woman, she said, oh, this person had a mini stroke. It's because she was exercising too much. But where in the scientific literature? I mean, things can happen, but where? Exercising how much can give you that type of stroke? And she complimented. But she went back drinking because, of course, alcohol doesn't do anything after stroke. This is the level of ignorance that we still have on earth, that will make people think that the sex of the baby, or the gender, however people want to say it, would have been changed if they had done something on under a different moon, or on a different day, if it were day or night, or this and that. And they go read all these books that talk about the acidic thing or not. We're not going to dispute it, because we know we can go to the lab and we can certainly change things before they happen. But when it's just us together, is it by chance somebody is conceived out of a mistake? mean, if you have any doubt, it's important to talk about this. Because I've seen many people, couples, who expect to have boys or girls, and then they are frustrated, and they try again, and they're like, if I had done something different, they don't understand that the reincarnatory plan is bigger than that. We are born in that body because we need that experience for 10,000 things.
It's like saying to God, you made a mistake.
It's as if we said to God, you made a mistake.
It's even more basic. You don't recognize God in the operation.
You know, I've never seen anybody who goes through this resistance ending up happy. Never. I've never read a book saying, oh, this person resisted and then they were super happy. We're not talking about sexual orientation. For those who are watching us, it's about accepting the body you were given. In no shape and form, but the purpose, psychologically. What is that for? So that's why Emmanuel, inspired by Kardec, the spirits at that time, he comes and brings definitions to us. What is sex then? Because people think sex is sexual intercourse. No. Sex is not sexual intercourse. Sex is a respectable but a profoundly holy attribute of nature, demanding education and control. See how far we are on earth? Because we have some form of sexual education in schools, barely, because we don't talk about the moral points, right? We only talk about safety, and when they talk about it, how it happens, but that's not about real education or control. But it's holy. It's like it's given. It's like a dog. When you see a dog or a cat or a bird, or any animal, a bunny, a deer, it's holy. Nature created it. Who are we to go there and simply disrespect it? But what else does he say that can help us? Sex is spirit and life at the service of happiness and harmony of the universe. At the service of happiness and harmony.
A very interesting definition.
But there's more. Let me bring one more. Sex is flow of creative forces that generate. Now, let's see. Why is it not? Why is it not showing? Okay. Oh, maybe because of the transition, right? See now, Carlos. Does it show? It does, thank you. So, sex is flow of creative forces that generate, and this is so important, generates the institute of reincarnation, the temple of the home, the blessings of family. Now, the revitalizing joys of affection. This is groundbreaking in spiritual literature. To recognize this, which many people feel as if it's sinful. And the good spirits are saying, no, you're supposed to like it when you do it out of true affection. Don't feel ashamed. Don't feel like, oh, I need it. No, you need it because it revitalizes us. Oops,
like
This
that.
is fascinating.
Yeah, it is. That's probably the favorite one in there.
Be-
Just because of what you're saying.
And because if you think of the long-standing taboos of all religions, none of them want to recognize this. It's all, no, it's just to reproduce, just to make a family.
Right.
And the good spirit saying, no, no. When you want it, because you feel revitalized and you feel that pleasure out of true affection, it's good. It's supposed, God created for that reason. And the priceless treasure of spiritual stimuli. Now, this is unknown. And only a story that Vivaldo said about Chico Xavier would explain it. What is this? Priceless treasure of spiritual stimuli. When the SSB turned 10 years, in 2008, Vivaldo came, was in a very private meeting, but this is recorded. So we have the recording, Vivaldo's words. He explaining that Chico Xavier, he was a man. He was in the body of a man. He never married because he understood he was not supposed to be married. He was basically a celibacy. But he felt that thing, Emmanuel said, talk to yourselves and ask them to send that force to your brain so you can do your works. It's precisely what Emmanuel said. The priceless treasure of spiritual stimuli. The day we learn to do it, we change our lives. Isn't that somewhat what Freud was almost stepping in when he talks about sublimation? Like when you learn how to control it and rechannel it, you don't change the essence, but you change the form of expression.
Some of these geniuses are already doing it.
Exactly. Instead of using it in a certain way, they rechannel it to another way. And so we wouldn't reincarnate were it not for sex. So we have to stop blaming sex for things. Because were it not for sex, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't have our families, our home, and the possibility of engaging in these two topics that we barely consciously know of.
And that first one that you emphasized is so important because sex wasn't enjoyable for sure affection.
We
It wouldn't be here.
We wouldn't be here.
It's God's infinite wisdom.
When people say, oh, that night, I can't believe that night changed my life because then a baby came. I don't even know who the father is. No, 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 no. Let's rewrite it. Last night, when you were unaware, but God was fully aware and gave you an opportunity to realign yourself and say, this is the life you need, not the one that you thought you had. You thought it was so nice and cool. Because without reincarnation, we wouldn't be here. So sex is blessed. I think today we need to change this mentality that we carry out for millennia. Oh, sex is sinful. Don't talk about sex. We can say the F word, but not sex. Right? Sex. It's like 3 words like God. G-O-D. S-X. Can't say these 2 words out loud. But we should say it's blessed. And then, one more. Emmanuel says, Emmanuel is fully liberating us every one of us brings the sum of acquired qualities in reincarnations. What is he talking about? He's talking about the feminine and the masculine. So we can't dispute. If somebody says, I am in the body of a woman, but I don't feel like a woman, we can't dispute. Because very likely they are not used to being in the body of a woman. But why would God ask you to do so? Good question. Because God doesn't impose himself so much so that now we can change. In society, more and more as we evolve, we are freer to choose. Love freedom. But then there is consequence. While we are incarnated, the soul reveals the tendencies that we acquired. I remember somebody who came and said, I am a woman, I'm married, but then one day I thought, what if instead of having a husband, I would have another woman with me? And I asked, why are you asking this question? Because nowadays, many people are doing this. So I was thinking, what if I chose differently? Would I be happier? The children of a person who was having problems with a partner said, maybe you should try the other sex, Mom, to see if it works better. This is our current society. As if we're playing a game. Oh, maybe I want it, maybe I don't. Maybe I'm a he, maybe I'm a she, maybe I'm they. Or now you have a list, right?
Yeah.
Any survey is non-binary. It's even hard to keep up with the terminology.
And I heard this too, like have advantage because the hands are so bad. Oh, I don't want to have a relationship with men anymore because, you know, you cheat. So I'm going to have a relationship with a woman. And I see that sometimes it happens the same thing. You know?
But then they'll find out it's nothing to do with the body, it's the spirit.
Yeah.
Because women cheat as well.
Yeah.
They see porn as well. Just like men. People think that when we come here, Mentor Joseph says, talk about porn. It's only for men. It's for women too. Because women consume a lot of porn. And during this pandemic, the industry has gone up. So we need to ask ourselves, do I know myself enough? This is how tricky it is for us. But we need to ask, what are my tendencies? Do I understand why I came into this body? But that doesn't mean I am limited to this. Can I recognize in me when I were previously in the body of a man? Or vice versa? Can I recognize it? Because the way I see the other sex is probably the way I were when I was in previous life.
The way you see it and how you relate to the other.
Yes. When you were, for example, when you said, oh, men always cheat. Okay, so you in a previous life, when you were a man, in previous lives, not necessarily the previous lives, do you think when you were in the body of a man, you were well behaved? That's why you're attracting misbehaved men. Why do we attract them? There's something else, right? So how was I? How do I see the other sex? It dictates pretty much how I see myself when I also work. Because we tend to believe that what we feel is all about the way others treat us. Not necessarily. Most of it is about how we've been. Like Granny Saxena. I know why I am in the body of a woman. To learn to respect women, being a woman. In her case, it's a case of an expiation. Not necessarily we are expiating, but we could. Expiating means atonement. Consequently, sex demands responsibility and discernment, what we don't have yet because many people are just going with the flow. I want it and I do it. And I want it and I do it. And if I don't do it physically, I do it mentally. I dream about it. I watch it. I browse through these 10,000 pictures as if I'm not doing anything. But we are. Believe it or not, this is the final point for us today before we open for more reflections. Emmanuel finalizes this chapter by saying, what to do with our sexual energies. What to do. So then what do we do? Use it or not? But how?
With responsibility.
What does that mean? So let's see what he says. Of course, it has to be a big paragraph. That is why our brothers and sisters need and should know what they do with their genesic, meaning the reproductive energies. Observing how and with whom and for what they use similar resources. Understanding that all commitments in sexual life are equally subordinated to the law of cause and effect. And according to this very principle, of everything we give to others in the affective world, someone will also give to us. See? So when we say, oh, men are just like this, okay, I wonder how you were as a man in previous lives. Because you're seeing what you're projecting what's inside. But look at the questions. How? How am I using it? With whom? And for what? Even when we have sex with the spouse. But for what? Self-satisfaction only. What is that? Selfish. No wonder the other one is like, hello, what is it for me? Right? And that's why many people have problems in their relationship, because what is the message that John read about in fraternal love? What if we use it for the exchange and not only for taking?
Like a vow.
It's got to be a mutual thing. It's not, well, you're married, so you have to allow me to have sex with you. It's always a request and a response.
Like when Andre Luis in No Solar. Remember? When he was young, maybe preteen, I guess, there was a maid in the house, was quite young. He had sex with her just because. Hormones. Bottom line, selfishness. He didn't care about her feelings. But she had feelings. Later, after he discarnates, he will find out that he simply destroyed her life without knowing it. He destroyed her life. Because from that point on, it was a roller coaster of events, one after the next in her life. She ended up in terrible condition. And now he's in the spiritual realm. He didn't even realize that was a misconduct. Because at his time, it was just also natural. Like it still is nowadays. This book is pushing us. It's pushing hard. But first question, how? How are we using it? Then with whom? And then for whatever reason. Now Gandhi, let's talk about Gandhi. The opposite. Married, and then he becomes Gandhi. And then history says that he sublimated his sexual forces in such a way he didn't need it anymore. But he had a spouse. And what do? You don't want it anymore, and then he was so responsible that he told her, I don't need it anymore. If from now on you don't want to be with me, that's okay. Because it's not only when you want it, but when you don't want it, it's affecting the other two. Things that in couples we don't think about. We always talk like, that person wants it all the time. And I see reels now on Facebook, funny reels. They talk about first year of marriage, second year of marriage, 10 years of marriage, and then how it happens. But it's like, what do we do with this? Because the body changes, but the vital force is there. The creative forces are there. What do we do with it in a relationship? You see, this educational process will require much more of us than we imagine. And it's not about satisfying the other person either.
Fascinating how spiritism shows a different, complete way to see things. It's like,
Mind blowing.
yes. It's funny because I was talking to a client today about, being a woman, being a man, like, like the way that men react with things, women react with another thing. Coming to this study today, I think before we, in our minds, spiritually, we have like a before, yes, something like that. It's so funny. Because we were talking how the men's react to women, like men's in different cultures, like how they, how they talk with the woman. Because she was saying her boyfriend talked to her like, and then he's from another country. And then she said, why are you talking to me like that? He said, I talk to my mom like that. I talk to my sisters like that.
So then go back to your mom.
Or he walks in front of her. So she has to walk, like not hand in hands, they cannot show affection. It's wrong.
Culture.
Yeah, and then she was saying, and then I told her, I said, why you don't talk to him? Why you don't express to him how you feel when he walks in front of you? Or she's like, I don't know. Like, I said, men need to know how we feel, and the same thing, vice versa. Like, we need to know how they feel,
Exactly.
right?
Yes.
So I have to think about that. If I'm in the body of a woman, I need to be more feminine, more sweet, but not accepting,
But that doesn't mean submissive.
exactly.
Feminine is not about weakness.
Not accepting
No.
everything but the man because they are the kings.
It's not about that. So we're being asked today to think of ourselves. First and foremost, why did God propose to us in this life to experience this in this body? Do I accept it? Very likely, we're very conflicted in so many ways because look at our past. Humankind's history is our history. We have been all over the place regarding our sexuality. I remember listening to Louise Hay's several meditations and visualizations on YouTube, and she often talks about this, saying, in previous lives, we were men and women, bisexual, and it's not a new thing, bisexual, homosexual, whatever. Whatever people is creating names, we've been there. And that's why in this life, we're still very conflicted, feeling that everything regarding sex is sinful because in previous lives, we misused it. If not in this life, in previous lives, for sure we misused. And in this life, we have a hint or two about where we've been. So we need to consciously go there and harmonize those feelings. Understand ourselves.
I think that's why it's so difficult. I see many women having difficulties to accept their bodies. I'm too fat, I'm this, I'm that, have this conflict.
Yeah.
Because they were many lives they were men, so they become as a woman and has this difficulty to accept the body. I'm talking women because I work with
You work with men.
a lot of them, yeah, so they always size 4, oh, but I'm not size 2.
But you know,
I'm like, I'm
men,
12.
men are not different. But men are not different. You think men are very confident about their bodies?
No, I don't believe so.
Men are equally conflicted, but they have different ways of dealing with it. First, many of them don't talk about it. Second, they have escape mechanisms that society has given them more easily, and they can try to mask it, but not necessarily treat it. Mask, it's just an external thing. But men are equally conflicted. Equally. Because it's a human thing.
Maybe even more so. The way they treat women.
But our society, for the longest time, gave the green light to men. Has given. In the US, it's changing, though we're not at the optimal state. But it has changed a lot. Right? If you look at Hollywood stories, even the men, like I saw this guy yesterday, the celebrity, I forgot his name, Kevin Spacey, yeah. He harassed boys in movies. And now one of the series he was connected to, a movie series, is suing his company for the big drop in the profit because of his, issues. So you see, this is how society is changing. So 2 questions for us today, of many. One, about our relationship with the very body, and especially with our gender or sex, however you want to name it, the body of a man, or a woman, boy, or girl, and our relationship with sex in terms of what am I doing with these creative forces? Because some people, they want to use it in inappropriate ways, but society doesn't allow it. And what happens to them? They enter deep depression. And it looks like they don't want to have sex with anybody. No, it's the opposite. They wanted it so much, but the repression in their case came so strong that they just entered this big depression. It happens too. Because they want to do it, but they don't know how to do it in ways that are appropriate and beneficial. So then they retain. Let's talk more about this because next chapter is about family. So, okay, next It's big chapter.
At least the key, I think.
Yeah.
What you left us with. What do you do with it? What do you do with it?
Yes. What do you
And
do?
I think that's most people just leave it to the bedroom. They don't understand the dynamic, the force, the creative force is not only to the reincarnation, but it can be for so many other wonderful things. And like you were saying earlier, the education really needs to be there to understand this, how this energy, this social energy, is not only relegated to that.
The question is, now, since you're bringing that up, if we go back to the Spirit's book, when Kardec asked, what is the worst vice of them all? What was the answer? Selfishness. In regards to sex, the worst that can happen when you use it for your pleasure and you disregard anybody's feelings. So there is a form of rethinking of the use of sex when you're talking about relationships. Because as you grow spiritually, you use it, and as he says, how? With whom? For what? And then you learn how to use it in a way that accommodates everyone's needs. Everyone meaning the two people, of course. Because we're never alone. It's not only about orgies we're going to talk about, but we're talking about spiritually. That's why it's important to pray. Some people say, but if I pray, I can't do it. Can you pray while you're doing it? That's the ideal, because it's so sacred, as he said, so holy. And pray in your mind. Of course, we're not going to stop, because if you stop, right? But we're saying you're connected. You feel so connected. You feel so sacred, so holy, that moment of togetherness, as Emmanuel said before, and I'm not creating any words, just taking as he said.
Right.
He said it here, revitalizing joys of affection. But it can't be only that. Look at the elements. It's not like, oh yeah, let's make each other happy. Because it's selfishness. It's only the two of you. You didn't create anything in anybody.
When this makes you think so much about dynamic force, and you think about think specifically about the Jewish faith, the Orthodox one, and how they have
10,000 kids. Because of this, they think, oh, it's impure if we don't end up reproducing. That's an extreme,
definitely,
right?
and then how they cover themselves up.
So that's why I brought at the end our model. You'd be surprised. Our model. How can Jesus be the perfect model, including in regards to sex? Well, some people, oh, he had sex with Mary Magdalene. No, I know somebody in person her name is Magdalene, and she says, she swears to God that Jesus was in love with Mary Magdalene.
He's in love with all of us.
But how can Jesus be a perfect model if he didn't create a family?
Because he was the first.
He didn't have his own children. That's a dissertation for a PhD in Spiritism.
Because I think if he had a wife and kids, it would be like selfish. Like we all, oh, my family, my kids. Because there is a moment in that he say, oh, who is my mother, who is my brothers? So everybody. So Jesus, his love was so immense that we couldn't concentrate in one family.
He focused on us all.
Yeah.
He was never here. He didn't have his own house. Nobody knows of him having a house. He lived in other people's homes. He was with everyone, helping everyone. So he really took us all as his family. But where is this law of reproduction that we talk in Spiritism? In Jesus. Where is it?
Well, God said, okay, you're the creator of the earth. And he created us also. We are part, our DNA is part of his DNA. So people understood, eventually they will. And now we're all struggling.
Exactly. So Jesus is our model on how to achieve this sublimation. Never selfish. He used all of these creative forces to help everyone. And that's our goal. That's our
So, when you, one of the last section out of Way to Truth and Life was about, there was a list of 12 things major things that Christ did. It was all about just talking and doing it. It changed society. Just, it wasn't anything about giving people money or helping them build something. It was all about his words and his actions. And the end of it was, what are you doing? What good are you doing?
the power of true affection, true love. That's where it comes
That's
to
really
Jesus.
remind me of the father of Chico Xavier when took him to hotel. Yeah. And then he find him praying with the prostitutes.
That's how he saw them, as sisters. He
Yes.
didn't see them as objects
Objects, yeah.
to be used. But we need to tame that in us because we've come from many lives misusing our bodies, the bodies of other people, the resources we have at hand. And it's going to take some conscious effort for us to change it, to be able to see somebody, like when we see a baby, naked baby, and somebody who is an adult and is naked. The day we can see a baby and an adult without clothes and just feel the same, like respect, we probably are not there yet. We don't blame ourselves for this because there is a reason why, but that's the goal. Remember the questions. How? Observing how we use With whom and for what? For what? When I see people nowadays with social media, especially WhatsApp, friends, groups of friends, and they send videos, it's very common, all age groups. We talk about teenagers, but adults are terrible, especially older adults, because they go there and did you see? Look at this celebrity. Look at this video. Oh, semi-naked, naked, and more. And they are like exchanging things. For what? And some people say, but Vanessa, I don't want to see it, but I can't exit the group because it's my group of friends. I say, I know. So then you have to educate yourself. Because when we receive those things, they are not there open. You have to click to download. So then you don't. Just say a prayer. Say a prayer to those people who are being seen because they are being vaporized by us. Look at Marilyn Monroe. Pretty soon, I think in September, Netflix is going to release a movie about Marilyn Monroe. But we spiritists, we know she didn't commit suicide. Much like not this direct suicide, much like Michael Jackson, Elvis Presley, they were under deep obsession. And that's what she says. But she says, I made a huge mistake. I misused my beauty and the power of her people because she was really using that power of seduction. But she ended up the way she did. So for what you're using these resources?
Still today they're using her image. So this doesn't affect her.
Oh, it does, and it will for like Elvis and many others. It will be there until it's gonna take a while. Look at Judas. And we still talk about
Yes.
Judas, but he ascended. But how long did it take? It took more than a millennium. So I don't know how long it's gonna take, but it's gonna be there. For Elvis and for her and for everyone, it's gonna be there. Because you have influence over people. Responsibility. So however you are affecting those generations, it's gonna affect you. It's law of cause and effect. Ouch. You see, Spiritism doesn't prohibit. It's not prejudiced against anything. But it's just saying the way things are.
Where's the good in what you do?
Yeah. What is the good
What you do.
in what you do? And I remember my father, when I was young in Brazil, hot Brazil. Huh? Why are you dressing up like this? Don't you understand? And I was like preteen, I didn't get it. Don't you understand the mind of man? Like, what do you mean that I don't really did? When they see you, they will see you like dogs see steak. Really? What for? Really? Steak, dog? Dad, I didn't get it. I have 4 brothers, so he was explaining things very plainly. Like, now I get it. I get it. But you have to educate. It's not enough to correct, saying do or don't, but explain. And it takes body awareness, emotional awareness. It takes brain development. So we can't expect children, teens to be there. because their brain is not fully developed to understand the other side of the coin. It will take maturity and time. So it is on us, the adults, to go there and take them by the hand and say, protect yourself. As in every age group, we're going to increase the awareness because you can't say it at once or they're going to start being afraid of things people shouldn't be afraid. So there's a balance, right, in this education. How much you can say and reveal at every age, but be there to educate. It's not enough to say do or don't. The story tells. You say don't, they go and do it. So it's about educating, not correcting simply, or prohibiting, or liberating like many people are doing. Ah, do whatever you like. Because we're adults, what if we were teenagers now? Mentor Joseph always asks me this question. Vanessa, what if you were a teenager now? Gosh, thank you. I am not.
Back in the days was so different than it's today. Like in my time, if I'll tell my dad, oh, I'm gonna sleep at Tony's house with Tony, my dad would be like, what? Crazy.
Yeah.
Today my niece sleeps with her boyfriend. So, and then I was talking to Sarah the other day, we were talking about that. And Sarah was like, imagine us with this freedom.
Yeah,
Back
we
in the
wouldn't do
days.
well. I think this generation is probably
We would do
doing much
worse.
better than us
Yes,
because they are exposed to all of this
Yes.
and they don't go as crazy as probably we would do.
Oh, yeah.
I prefer to think this way than to think, oh, people are going crazy. No, no, no. We need more freedom to educate ourselves. Though it's hard, it's labor intensive, right? Let's see if anybody from the internet has a question or a comment. Feel free to ask, okay? Or share. Friends, we got a good chunk today. Huh? Mamma mia. We passed the first. Second is family, okay? So it's family.
What is the third one? No, because we're not gonna
You're not gonna be
here.
here. But you
I
can get the
think-
book in Portuguese. Get
Yes,
the book
I'm
in
gonna
Portuguese.
buy it. And then I will see if we can watch. It's Tony's
Yeah.
birthday on Friday, next
Oh.
Friday. But we're gonna try to watch, right, Tony?
Thank you.
You don't promise.
You try because you never know, right?
We can watch later after you.
All right. So now we're going to go through the spiritual process and the prayer. Yes, thank you. Carlos, can you turn this light on, please? Thank you. Friends over the internet, if you have any comment or question, feel free to ask. Now we'll be here for the passes. Let us visualize the days. Can you believe it in Portuguese? It's free. Yeah. I'll ask Luciana to do it for us, please. Look. So let us all now prepare ourselves to receive healing energies that has been provided to us throughout this study session. Breathing in and out, visualizing rays of light
illuminating us spiritually and physically, allowing this healing energy disperse energies that are making us stuck and not progressing in this reincarnation, being displaced and being recycled. And now we can see Master Jesus and his team helping us to align ourselves with this flow of energies of love, of creation, as we surrender to the Master of all Masters. He can heal us and align all our chakras, and especially today, as we start this study session, let us visualize we being aligned on the basic chakra. So these energies of sex that ground us can be balanced and help us to be more creative and more connected spiritually with the creation of this universe. We visualize all the other chakras also being aligned. And as we trust in Master Jesus and feel his loving care for each one of us, we allow these healing energies to heal not only us, but all of those that are connected to us, connected by blood ties, by relationships that we chose, and connecting this community and the whole human race being connected. Healing energies are being shared with everyone in the planet. And we can see the planet Earth being healed as Master Jesus are guiding and protecting us daily. And as we continue to see, feel the presence of the loving mentors, the doctors and nurses, we now join forces for a collective prayer. And we pray for each and every one connected in this study section now, asking that we can transform our lives with the teachings of today and to be able to share what we learn with those that are close to us. And we also pray for our community, the community of the Spirit Society of Virginia, that is also in need of guidance and help from the doctors and nurses of the spiritual realm. We pray for our whole community in the Virginia state of the country of the United States. We pray for everyone that are in need of help, of God in their lives. And we pray especially for those in position of prayer, in position of power, in which they need much prayer so that they can make the right decision for this whole community, for this whole country that depends on it. And Master Jesus, we are very thankful for this study session, for being here together, learning and studying more about spirituality, about all these topics that is very close to us. And we are very thankful for this center to be here and helping us. We are thankful for the opportunity of being here today, connecting and receiving blessings that we cannot even count, and for being able to really be with you. And we ask for your guidance. We ask for illumination so that we can really learn, feel, and transform ourselves. We ask also for courage so we can do this transformation that is must needed. So, dear Father, we feel much joy and much gratitude in our heart. And with your permission, we would like to close this study session of today. And so be it.
Have the water. We want to thank our friends who have been here with us. Thank you so much, friends. Okay, just disconnect the camera. Okay. Bye. Start camera. So thank you, friends. Thank you, May, Nora, Beth, Slavic, Narciso, Daisy. Thank you for your help. We wish you a beautiful day and night, and we hope to see you soon.